Okay, we're at the point in the installation now where really it's the most technical point, or the part where we're going to overlap the liner in an overlap pool. And we'll talk a little bit about overlap first, and then the next about a beaded liner, the two different types. But for an overlap liner, we're going to use an example for a round swimming pool. It's a little bit easier to illustrate. And we're going to start with a round pool where at this point, of course, the old liner's out. You have the new liner laid out or spread in the swimming pool, and remember, it's centered. We've already come to the point where the bottom seam is centered with respect to the perimeter of the pool, and it's not right up against the perimeter. Instead, it's a little bit away. That they're designed that way. We want to stretch them into place, so to speak. We do, most importantly, again, before we start this, we're also checking that there's enough time in the day for it to be 80 degrees and sunny. If it's rainy or cloudy or not 80 degrees or hotter, we want to postpone it. We don't want to do it. We want this thing to come out wrinkle-free and last a long time and not have any problems in the installation. So 80 degrees and sunny, as we said before, is very crucial. It's one of the most important points. Also, this is the only way to install these particular liners. There's a lot of different YouTube videos out there. There's people that made their own instructions, or you come up even manufacturer instructions, different ones from previous pool liners that you've owned. Want them to throw all that out. It means nothing. This is the only technique that these are designed, that these particular liners are designed for. All other techniques are out the door, basically. We use what's called a north, south, east, west technique. Let me illustrate that. If this is your swimming pool, obviously that'd be north, south, east, and west. So when we start to take the wall of the liner and to attach it up at the top, we want to start at the northmost point of the pool. A lot of people, what they do is they make a mistake and they start at one point and they go around. And the problem is, once you get all the way around to about here, the liner's so tight that it will not fit. It's hard to get it up and over the wall. So we actually, just like the lug nuts on a tire, we start at north, then we do south, then we do east, then we do west. So at this point, we're basically going to go ahead and take all the top rails off the swimming pool. And this is really dependent also on how many people you have installing the liner. If you're a DIY guy, do-it-yourselfer guy, DIY guy, you should have as many people as you can, because when you take the top rails off the wall, the pool wall is kind of flimsy, so the more people holding it, the better. If you only have a couple of people doing it with you, maybe you alternate and take every other one off, or you take a few off, put them back on, take them off, put them back on, take them back off, and kind of alternate. As a professional, we use a tool where technically I can do this as a one-man crew, because I can take the top rails off and I use basically a bungee cord hooked to a clamp with a stake on it, and that particular tool holds the pool wall and then gets staked into the ground on the outside. So it's like a pair of hands holding the pool wall to keep it rigid. If you don't have something like this, or you can't make something or design something like that, a pair of hands is good. And if you only have a couple pairs of hands, then just keep a couple top rails on for rigidity up at the top, and you'll have to adjust accordingly depending on how big your pool is, etc., and how many people you have. So take all the top rails off, and then start to overlap the swimming pool liner at the northmost end, basically up and over the wall, and a good amount on the outside is anywhere from 8 to 12 inches. A lot of people will go too short and they'll only put it approximately 2-3 inches on the outside. It's not enough. On a typical overlap liner, you want to give it a good 8 to 12 inches on the outside. And again, a little bit of adjustments needed. They're all a little bit different. A big part depends on how much sand cove is in the bottom, etc., but 8 to 12 inches is the norm on an above ground overlap liner. When you do go ahead and overlap it, again, this bottom seam is still a little bit away from the wall, and you go ahead and overlap it on the north side 8 to 12 inches, you will realize this is going to be like a side view. So that's the pool wall, that's the bottom of the floor, the liner itself will actually, in the corner, will come up. It won't be sitting in the corner, dead in the corner here. Instead, there will be a little bit of air there, and it will be taut in the corner. Sometimes more than others, but that's okay. We want to see that when we're installing it, and the liner will be installed over approximately 8 to 12 inches on the outside. And that gap there, or that space, is something that we want. Back to the north, south, east, west. So once we do north, then we go in and we put it over and we put the top metal on, the coping, the top metal, and the top rails. We install the top of the pool at that point, and especially if you don't have that many helpers, to keep the rigidity at that point up at the top so the pool wall isn't falling in. So we go from north, then we go and do the same thing on the south end, or the opposite side of the pool. We go ahead and we overlap at 12 inches, we put the coping on, the top metal, and the top rail on, and kind of secure it just in that one spot. Then we go to east and do it in the east. Then number 4 is the west. We do it on the west. And at this point, you'll have the liner installed in 4 different points. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, just like tightening the lug nuts on a tire, we're distributing the stretch of the liner across 4 corners instead of going all the way around and having it just stretch at the end. That's something, it's crucial that we don't want to do it that way. After those 4 points are installed, pretty simple, then we go in between them. Northeast, number 5, southwest, number 6, number 7, and number 8. Same way, we install it at that point, we bring it over 8 to 12 inches, we go ahead and put the coping on, the top metal, and the top rail. And again, you'll still see this tautness in the corner. It'll be tight, or actually pull up off the ground. Sometimes you have to muscle it up and over to get it tight like that. You don't want it nice and flat. You don't want it laying up against this corner. You do want a certain amount of this stretch in the corner in this particular technique. Okay, after those 8 points that are installed, then you go in the middle and finish up. So you finish up this spot, then you finish this spot, then you finish this spot, then you finish this spot, all the way around till you get to the end. And that will ensure a distributed stretch throughout so that it doesn't just end up at the end real tight. Very, very important. It's the right way to do it. Again, 80 degrees and sunny, you want to muscle that thing up over the wall so this actually comes out and is taut in this point. And all the way around it should be like that. Pretty similar. I mean, there's a little bit of give and play. Some are a little bit different. If it's real hot out, you probably won't have as much stretch here. If it's a little cooler out, you'll have more stretch, but all that's proper. And remember, 8 to 12 inches on the outside. That's it for this step. The next step's pretty important also, but at this point you kind of got it where you want it and you distributed it correctly. And the next step will be a little bit more about filling it and about getting some of the wrinkles out, and one of our magic tricks, which is the shop vac trick, that's similar to other techniques, but it's definitely important the way we do it. Thank you.